The wind rolled across the Wyoming plains with a cold bite, kicking up dust and sage that swept over the small town of Redemption Creek. The year was 1887, and the town sat quiet and worn under the wide sky. Wooden buildings lined the dirt road like tired soldiers, trying their best to hold back the loneliness of the frontier. The saloon, the general store, and the auction house made up the town's backbone. Everything else felt like an afterthought. Jacob Harlo stood on the porch of the Silver Dollar Saloon, with his boots propped up on the railing. At 35, he was one of the richest ranchers in the whole territory and owner of the Double H Ranch, a spread so large it swallowed miles of open land. His face carried the marks of a hard life, but his gray eyes were sharp and steady. Men respected him. Women stayed clear of him. There was something unyielding in him that made people keep their distance. Tom Brennan, his foreman, stepped beside him. "Another auction today," he said. "Heard there's a new widow in the mix." Jacob took a slow drink from his glass. He hated these auctions. Every fall, desperate widows lined up to be bid on by men looking for workers, cooks, or wives. It was a cruel tradition, but Redemption Creek clung to it. "Who is she?" Jacob asked. "No one knows," Tom said. "Came in yesterday wrapped in black from head to toe. Folks are calling her the Mystery Widow." Inside the saloon, men laughed and shouted as they placed bets on who would win which woman. Jacob stayed where he was, telling himself the auction had nothing to do with him. He didn't need a wife, he didn't need trouble. And a woman wrapped in black from head to toe sounded like trouble. Across the street, Judge Morrison banged his gavel. "Let's get this auction started," he yelled. Men hurried forward, eager for a good spot. Jacob stayed on the porch until the first women walked out. He knew them all: Sarah Mills, Betty Donovan, Annie Peterson. Hard lives had carved deep lines into their faces. Then the final woman stepped out, the Mystery Widow. She didn't hunch or tremble like the others. She walked with calm steps and held herself straight. A long black veil hid her face completely. Gloves covered her hands. Her whole body was wrapped in darkness, making her look like a statue carved from midnight. The crowd fell into a hush. "Gentlemen," Judge Morrison began. "The lady prefers privacy. She's educated and capable. She will share her name after arrangements are made." The whispers began immediately. "What's she hiding? Maybe she's sick. Or ugly as sin." Jacob felt something shift inside him. He didn't know why, but he stepped forward through the crowd. Something about the way she stood, proud yet fragile, pulled at him. Judge Morrison lifted his gavel. "Shall we start the bidding at $20? Silence. $10? Still, no one spoke. Jacob saw the woman's gloved hands clench. She was nervous, scared, but she didn't show it in her posture. Then a voice cut through the silence. "Hey, Harlo!" Buck Watson swaggered out of the saloon, grinning like a coyote. He was loud, drunk, and always looking for trouble. His two friends followed behind, already laughing. "I'll bet you $100, Buck said, "that you can't get that crow to take off all that black by sunrise. You know, become your wife, for real." The crowd erupted in laughter. Jacob's jaw tightened. Buck smirked. "What's wrong, Harlo? Lost your charm?" Jacob didn't care about the wager. He didn't care about the crowd. But he cared that Buck thought he could shame him in front of the whole town. "Make it 300, Jacob said. "Then I'll take your bet." The crowd gasped. Buck slapped his knee. "Done!" Jacob turned to the judge. $75. Judge Morrison perked up. "75 from Mr. Harlo. Any higher?" Ezra Blackwood, a merchant with a cold smile, stepped forward. 100. Jacob's eyes narrowed. 125. 150, Blackwood countered. 200, Jacob said, steady and calm. Blackwood froze. The crowd fell silent again. Finally, he stepped back. "She's all yours, Harlo." "Sold!" the judge shouted, slamming his gavel. The mystery widow stood perfectly still as Jacob approached. The crowd watched with greedy eyes, whispering about the bet. Jacob held out his hand. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "let's get out of here." For a long moment she didn't move. Then her hand slipped into his. She trembled beneath the glove. "My name is Clara," she whispered. "Clara Thornton." Jacob helped her into his wagon. As he drove away from the town, away from the hungry stares and cruel laughter, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into something bigger than he understood. Clara sat beside him, silent and hidden beneath her veil, like a secret wrapped in darkness. And Jacob Harlo had just bought that secret with $200 and a fool's pride. Jacob guided the wagon across the open plains, the wheels bumping along the rough ground. The sun was setting behind the mountains, staining the sky red like burning coals. Clara Thornton sat beside him, hidden behind her black veil. She held herself so still that Jacob wondered if she was even breathing. He cleared his throat. "You comfortable enough?" "Yes," she answered softly, though he could still hear the tremble in her voice. When the ranch came into view, Clara lifted her head. The Double H Ranch stretched wide across the land. Barns, corrals, bunkhouses, and the main house standing tall against the prairie wind. It was the kind of place most people dreamed of having. But Clara didn't seem impressed. She seemed tired, lost. Maria, the housekeeper, stepped out onto the porch when the wagon stopped. Her eyes widened when she saw Clara, wrapped up in black like someone attending her own funeral. "Maria," Jacob said, helping Clara down from the wagon, "prepare the blue room. Mrs. Thornton will be staying with us." Maria nodded, though her worry showed clear. "Si, senor." Clara followed Maria inside without a word. Jacob watched her go, the weight of what he had done finally sinking in. He had bought a woman at auction. He had taken a drunk man's bet. And for the first time that whole day, shame burned in his chest. He turned away from the house, letting out a breath that felt heavy as lead. Tom Brennan approached, scratching his beard. "You sure about this, boss?" "No," Jacob said plainly. "But it's done." Inside the house, Clara moved like a shadow. The blue room was warm and clean, but she sat on the edge of the bed like she didn't belong anywhere. When Maria brought her a tray of food, Clara thanked her politely, but barely touched it. Later that night, Jacob paced the downstairs hall, unable to rest. He could hear footsteps in the room above him, Clara walking back and forth, wearing a path in the floorboards. She was nervous, frightened, maybe even regretting everything. Jacob ran a hand through his hair. He didn't know what he had expected when he bit on her, but he had not expected this gnawing guilt. Hours passed. The house grew quiet. But sometime after midnight, a soft knock came at Jacob's door. He sat up fast. "Come in." The door opened slowly, and Clara stepped inside, still wrapped in black. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. "Mr. Harlo, we must settle this matter." Jacob stood. "You don't have to." "Please," she said. "Let me speak." She lifted her hands to her veil. Jacob froze. She removed the heavy black covering first, letting it fall on the chair. Then she took out the pins that held the thin veil beneath. Her fingers trembled, but she did not stop. With the final pin gone, she pulled the veil away from her face. Jacob's breath caught. The scars were deep, twisting across her left temple and down her scalp where the fire had stolen her hair. Her skin was marked, uneven, but her eyes, gray like storm clouds, were sharp and alive. "This is what you paid for," she said quietly. "This is the face men turned away from. The face my old town feared and shunned. This is why I hide." Jacob stepped closer. "Ma'am, my husband and son died in a fire. Railroad men set it. They wanted to silence him. I survived, though God knows I sometimes wished I hadn't." Her voice cracked, but she didn't look away from him. "They took everything, and when I refused to sell the land to them, the town turned against me. I was no longer a wife. I was a curse. I left before they could destroy what was left of me." Jacob swallowed hard. Clara, I didn't know. You didn't want to know, she corrected. You made a bet. You wanted to win. Well, you did. Her hands shook as she removed her wig next, the coarse black hair falling away to reveal her scarred scalp. She held it out like something dead. Now you have the truth. If you wish to collect your winnings, call Mr. Watson at sunrise. If not, I will return to the blue room. Jacob didn't move. He couldn't. The shock wasn't from her scars. It was from the strength it took for her to show them. Clara, he said, voice low, sit with me a moment. I prefer to stand. Then I'll stand too. And he did. You listen to me, he said gently. I won't be calling Buck Watson, and I won't claim that damn bet. You don't owe me anything. Clara frowned. Why? Because what happened to you was evil, not shameful. The shame belongs to the men who hurt you. Silence stretched between them. Then Clara whispered, I don't understand you. Maybe I don't understand myself, Jacob said, but I know this. You don't have to hide here, not from me, not in my home. Clara blinked hard. For the first time that night, her shoulders loosened just a little. I should return to my room, she murmured. Jacob nodded, stepping aside. As she moved toward the door, he said quietly, You're safe here, Clara. I promise. She stopped, looked back, and whispered, Thank you, Jacob. Then she slipped out into the hallway, leaving the veils and wig behind on the chair. Jacob stared at them for a long time. Those bits of black cloth had been her armor, her prison, her burden. And now she had left them behind. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. Clara Thornton was far stronger than anyone realized. And the secrets she carried were only beginning to surface. The first light of dawn touched the Wyoming plains softly, turning the horizon pale gold. Clara stood on the back porch of the Double H Ranch, wrapped in a shawl, staring across the fields that stretched into forever. The morning air was cold, but the quiet felt different today, lighter somehow, as if the land itself knew something had changed in her. Behind her, the door opened. Jacob stepped out slowly, careful of his wounded side. Clara turned, worry crossing her face. You should be resting, she said. I rest enough, he replied. Besides, I wanted to check on you. Clara lowered her eyes. She had faced outlaws, fire, and a past that had nearly broken her. Yet Jacob's concern still made her heart jump in ways she didn't understand. I'm fine, she said, though her voice didn't sound convincing even to herself. Jacob stepped closer. Clara, yesterday was a war. You saved this ranch. You saved me. That's not something anyone forgets. Clara swallowed hard. I didn't want more people to die because of me. No one died because of you, Jacob said gently. They came for you, yes, but the whole town stood with you. That wasn't fear. That was respect. Clara blinked quickly, fighting emotion. Respect was something she hadn't felt from a community in a long time. Inside the house, the clatter of plates and Maria's voice drifted from the kitchen. The ranch was already awake, moving forward, as if the night of blood and fire had never happened. That was the way of the West. Life didn't stop for grief. You just kept going. Jacob turned her gently to face him. There's something I need to ask, he said quietly. She felt her chest tighten. Ask what? He hesitated for the first time since she'd met him. Jacob Harlo, the strong, stubborn rancher who never doubted a single decision, looked almost nervous. Clara, the auction contract ends next week. Legally, you can leave the ranch, leave Redemption Creek, start a new life anywhere you want. Clara's breath caught. This was it, the moment she had expected since she arrived. She forced herself to speak. Do you want me to leave? No. Jacob said it without hesitation. I want you to stay. He stepped back, reached into his pocket, and lowered himself onto one knee. Clara froze, her heart slamming in her chest. Jacob opened a small velvet box, revealing a simple gold ring with a blue stone. Clara Thornton, you didn't come into my life the way most women do, but you came into it exactly when I needed you. You've made this ranch a home again. You've shown more courage than any person I've ever known." His voice softened. "And I don't want a single day to pass without you in it." Tears blurred Clara's vision. "Jacob, I'm scarred. You know that. There are parts of me that are broken beyond repair." Jacob reached for her hand, steady as the mountains behind them. "Everyone's scarred, Clara. Some on the outside, some on the inside. Your scars don't scare me. They tell a story of survival. A story I want to be part of." The morning breeze carried the scent of sage as the world seemed to pause around them. "Will you stay?" Jacob asked, "not as a contract, not because you have nowhere else to go, but as my wife, my partner, my equal. Will you marry me?" Clara's hands shook as she covered her mouth. The loneliness she had carried for so long, the grief, the fear, all of it cracked open under the weight of his words. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Jacob, I'll stay. I'll marry you." Jacob slipped the ring onto her finger. Clara didn't wear veils anymore, but if she had, tears would have soaked through every layer. The door swung open then, and Maria came out with a basket of laundry. When she saw the scene, she let out a joyful shout. "Dios mío!" he finally asked. Clara laughed through her tears, and Jacob helped her to her feet. Tom Brennan and Pete, who'd clearly been listening through the kitchen window, burst out cheering. Before long, the whole ranch knew. Word spread faster than wildfire. The wedding took place 2 weeks later in Redemption Creek's small church. The townspeople filled the pews, not with judgment, but with pride. Clara wore a sky-blue dress Maria had sewn, and small wildflowers were woven through the patches of hair she had left. Her scars still showed, but she walked down the aisle with her head held high. Jacob stood at the altar, his face softening the moment he saw her. The ceremony was simple, honest, just like the land they lived on. When Jacob kissed Clara, the cheers could be heard echoing off the hills. The reception was held at the ranch. Women brought quilts, pies, jars of preserves, even a rocking chair for the new couple. Sarah Mills, the widow from the auction, gave Clara a handmade quilt with each square sewn by a different woman in Redemption Creek. "For standing with us," Sarah said. "For showing us what strength looks like." Clara hugged her tightly. For the first time in years, she felt part of something bigger than her own pain. As the night fell and lanterns lit the yard, Jacob pulled Clara into a slow dance. He held her close, his hand over the small of her back. "Happy?" he murmured. Clara rested her head on his chest, for the first time in a long while. "You think life will quiet down now?" he asked. Clara smiled softly. "On a Wyoming ranch? Not a chance." Jacob chuckled. "Good. I like a woman who keeps life interesting." She looked up at him, her gray eyes warm. "I love you, Jacob Harlo." "And I love you, Clara Harlo," he said, brushing a kiss across her forehead. Scars and all. The moon rose over the ranch, silver and bright. Somewhere in the garden Clara tended so carefully, the first rosebud of spring began to open, soft, new, and stubborn, just like the woman who planted it. Clara Harlo stared up at the endless Wyoming sky, holding her husband's hand, and felt something she had thought forever lost. Hope. A new life had begun, born from ashes, rebuilt with courage, and held steady by love, strong enough to face anything the frontier dared to throw their way.